Hey there, ready to break a sweat and explore the science behind what makes young athletes tick? Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating 2020 study all about the body composition of young inline speed skaters. Those athletes who make balancing on wheels while flying around a track look easy.
It's quite a skill.
You know how crucial strength and stamina are in any sport,
You're
right?
right.
Well, this deep dive unpacks how body composition, that ratio of muscle to fat, impacts the performance of these incredible athletes. And it's not just about one measurement in time either. This study followed these athletes over years, giving us a unique look at how their bodies changed.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? Following these athletes for years, it gives us way more insight than just a snapshot in time. It helps us see how body composition shifts as these athletes grow and train.
And the sport itself, inline speed skating, adds another layer of intrigue. You need explosive power for those sprints, but also incredible endurance for longer races. So how does body composition factor into all of that?
Well, right off the bat, the researchers found something pretty interesting. While there were some expected differences in body fat between guys and girls, the differences in muscle mass were way more dramatic across all ages.
Now, before you jump to conclusions, let's break this down a bit. We know that guys tend to pack on muscle more easily than women. Those hormonal differences, especially when it comes to testosterone, play a big role.
Yeah, definitely a factor.
But, and this is a big but, does that mean girls are doomed to be slower on the track?
Not so fast. Here's where it gets really interesting.
The study found that having a lower body fat percentage was actually a stronger predictor of performance than just muscle mass alone.
Interesting.
This was true for both boys and girls.
Yeah.
It seems like being lean and mean might give you an edge when it comes to gliding past the competition, especially in those endurance races.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes you think about the balance between power and endurance in the sport, right?
Absolutely. And to really dig into this, the researchers got even more specific. Instead of just looking at averages, they used this cool method to create what are called percentile curves.
Percentile curves. Sounds complicated.
They're actually pretty straightforward. Imagine those growth charts your doctor used to use, the ones that showed you where you landed compared to other kids your age.
Right.
This study used a similar concept, but for body fat and muscle mass. So instead of just saying the average body fat for a 12-year-old is X, they could see where a particular athlete fell in the spectrum. Like, were they in the top 25%, the middle 50%, or the bottom 25%?
Oh, I see. So it's a more personalized way of seeing how these young athletes stacked up against each other.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. When they looked at these percentile charts, they noticed something fascinating. As we mentioned, boys on average tended to have a higher muscle mass percentage across the board. But get this, the differences in body fat between boys and girls, while statistically significant in some age groups, were much smaller than the differences they observed in muscle mass.
Wow, so while those hormonal differences might give boys a bit of a head start in the muscle department when it comes to body fat, it's more of an even playing field. It really highlights how crucial training and nutrition are for all young athletes, regardless of gender. Whether you're a boy or a girl, what you eat and how you train can make a world of difference in your body composition and ultimately your performance on the track.
Yeah, for sure. And remember, we're talking about young athletes who are still growing and developing. Their bodies are works in progress. It's not about fitting them into some cookie-cutter mold based on whether they're a boy or a girl. It's about helping each athlete optimize their unique potential.
Now that's a message I can get behind, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
This study focused on inline speed skating. How much this applies to other sports? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, we've been talking about a sport that demands a really specific blend of speed and stamina. Would we see the same patterns in, say, marathon runners who prioritize endurance over short bursts of speed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Or weightlifters, where muscle mass is often a key factor in their performance.
Exactly. It makes you wonder how much of these findings about body composition come down to the specific demands of the sport versus those universal factors of genetics, training, and even nutrition.
Right. It's definitely not one size fits all.
It's like that old saying, you can't train a racehorse to be a plow horse.
Right.
They're both incredibly strong animals, but they excel in different areas because they're built differently.
Exactly. And that's what makes this research so interesting. It gives us a framework for understanding how body composition can influence athletic performance. But it also reminds us that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Every athlete is unique. They have different strengths, different weaknesses, and different genetic blueprints.
What works for one athlete might not work for another, even if they're competing in the same sport.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of that whole debate about body mass index, or BMI. It can be a helpful tool for understanding population-level trends, but it doesn't tell the whole story for individuals.
I see what you mean.
You could have two people with the same BMI, but one's a marathon runner with very little body fat, and the other's a power lifter who's built like a tank. They're both healthy and fit, but their bodies reflect their training and their goals.
It's about looking beyond those surface-level metrics and appreciating the incredible diversity of human physiology.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this research?
That's easy. Embrace individuality. Whether you're an athlete, a coach, or just someone passionate about fitness, remember that there's no single path to success. We're all wired differently, we respond to training in unique ways, and comparing ourselves to others can be a recipe for frustration. Instead of chasing some arbitrary ideal body type, focus on optimizing your own potential. Find what works for you, listen to your body, and celebrate the journey.
That's a great message to end on. This has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of young athletes and how body composition influences their performance. Remember, this is just the starting point. There's a whole world of sports science out there to explore. So until next time, keep those minds sharp and those bodies moving, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.